John, you can stay there and give us a quick update on the town hall.
Well, production companies and fountains aside, we're all but ready to open the CSO part of the facility and welcome the CSO into the town hall, which we're very excited about. In terms of the physical works, they're approaching completion this week, and we're expecting to have a certificate of compliance next week, as I understand it currently. And the CSO will move in later in August ahead of their first event, which is scheduled for the 12th of September, as previously reported. In terms of the finances, there's no change to previous reports there, that we're still on track to remain within that total maximum budget envelope of 167.2. And I'm hopeful that I can bring you more information in that respect to the September meeting. I'll leave it there, and if you guys got questions, I'll take those.
Yes, obviously there was a question on the Ferrier fountain. Obviously that's being repaired. Yeah,
I think the specific question was can you tell us what's going on? And the honest answer is right now, no. There's a meeting that will happen later this week where we'll get to grips with it. As I understand it, the fountain always had issues with blocking up, and part of the scope of works was to install a multi-layer filtration system to try and prevent that from happening and reduce the overall operating cost for the fountain for V-Base. And there's been issues with that system, and so we've got the team together later this week to work out what those are, and happy to bring you more information when we know more.
Okay.
I wonder if we need to get a report back to the next meeting or a memo, but maybe it's part of the lessons learned, but V-Base have asked for something, it's created an issue, we're now trying to fix the issue. But
what are we talking about here?
The Ferrier fountain.
Yeah. Well, it's an operational matter. People just want to know what's going on. It's a
public confidence matter in our projects where, something should be working, it's not working, and there's been ongoing issues raised in the media over this. So I think just having some really clear messaging around it, how it's happened, why it's happened, and then what we're doing to fix it. But
I think John explained that, and there's a meeting this week to work out it's an old piece of kit, and obviously the filtration system is quite difficult.
From the day one.
Anyway,
it's been a problem.
But next question.
That's the key thing.
Well, I think, and the communication around it to the public, around what's happening, because
I think there's been plenty of communication about it. Anyway,
so can I just ask another question on the town hall, and that was around the disability access and barrier-free auditing. So. Similar to the point that Tim's made, although from a different perspective, I really wanted to get an understanding around what improved accessibility we've put into the town hall as part of the upgrade, and if it is, best practice in terms of accessibility and barrier-free. And I just wondered if there was any kind of work that we'd done in that regard that you could share with us, so we can get a sense of what improvements have been made. Or what improvements were unable to be made as part of the process.
I can. We've actually got a draft memo waiting to go to you guys. I think this came up. I think Aaron raised it a few meetings ago.
Yeah.
I've been back through the documentation that exists. We did have barrier-free undertaken audit early in the project. It was actually prior to some of the design scope actually having been finalised around the Boaters restaurant in particular, which used to have multiple levels to it.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the majority of the recommendations that they came up with were implemented.
Right.
It would have been the audit would have been on a slightly constrained basis because obviously of the heritage nature of the building.
Sure.
But the team certainly made efforts to implement, in particular, the more significant pieces as well.
Okay.
So a couple of examples were creating an accessible seating area on the upper level of the auditorium, which wasn't there previously, and creating the overbridge from the lift in the foyer, which was extended to the Victoria foyer, which wasn't previously there as well, which access to that area was previously through the back of the James Hay Theatre, which wasn't ideal. So the team actually made some reasonable efforts to implement, in particular, a lot of the medium and the kind of more major changes to the facility. One thing that we noted previously when we discussed this in here was that the back of house areas had been excluded from those audits to some extent, which was unfortunate and disappointing. We'll be working with Barrier Free or another organisation if we can't engage Barrier Free, which we weren't able to on the library because of their availability, to undertake a post-construction review, if you like, just to see what we were looking at when we first were looking at the facility and what we've been able to implement and what recommendations are still outstanding that we can consider at this stage.
Yeah, I just specifically the James Hay, is that fully accessible?
Well, there's lift access into the James Hay. There's no seating at the accessible seating at the upper level, but there are seating areas at at an accessible level.
And the stage though is accessible for wheelchairs?
It is. I mean, it's the building's fully compliant. The stage is accessible either from two areas, either via the loading dock or through the foyer and down by the toilets next to the foyer bar. So yeah, there is accessible access.
Thanks.
Any other questions, Andrew?
Thank you. Just focusing on paragraphs 3.1 and 3.2, so the increased budget, the 15 million. There's a report obviously coming back, and noting the comments in 5.2 as well, there's a report coming back. When is that expected to be presented? When will that report be ready?
As I understand it, it'll be next month.
Next month?
Yep.
Okay, that's good. And obviously we'll have some discussion at that time, but is it still expected that the 15 million is going to be able to be found from within the existing capital programme?
As I understand it, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll just wait for the report next month and expect to see all of that there. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, John. We've got a resolution to receive the update. Do I have a mover? Moved Sarah, seconded Phil. Any debate? I'll put the motion. All in favour say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried. Thank you very much, John and Mark.